Sota Daf Kafchet Amud Aleph. Tune into spirituality. Safek Tumah Kavadai. A study came out a couple of days ago that although there's been a decline in adherence to institutionalized religion, there has been an increase in faith among young people. So that there are many more young people since the pandemic who acknowledge a belief in God or a higher force than before the pandemic. Although the institutionalized religion is not necessarily doing that well, particularly in the Judeo-Christian area. We're aware that in the Frum area, the religious area among the Jewish people is vibrant and growing, but the totality of it isn't. We're losing people all the time. So one understands that there's a cynicism, a suspicion about institutionalized religion, particularly with all the scandals that have taken place in the last decade or two. But there's an increasing awareness of God in the world. Torah Yiddishkeit is much more than an awareness of spirituality or a belief in God. What Torah Judaism requires is it's a different level. It's the ability to sense Kedusha, an ability to sense Tahara, sanctity, purity, the ability to feel Tumah. So being spiritual, it's all very saying, yeah, I believe in spirituality and I meditate and I think and all of that. That's beautiful, that's lovely. But that's not what the Torah is about. The Torah is about being so tuned in that you can actually experience the intangibles of spirituality. Kedusha is an intangible. Tumah and Taira are intangibles. And they require different responses. If one can feel them, then one has to respond to them in different ways. You can't just carry on doing the same. If you feel a sense of Kedusha in a place, in a shul, in Yerushalayim, in Israel, at the Kotel, wherever, you feel an experience of Kedusha, you can't act and behave the way you do in a soccer stadium. You respond in a different way. If you feel Tumah, what do you do about it? How do you react? How do you respond? If you feel Taira, how do you react and respond? So let's go into it a little bit more deeply. The piece of Gemara that we're dealing with at the bottom of Kafchet Amud Aleph is based on the Posuk in Parshas Sota and Parshas Naso. So we'll be reading Parshas Naso in a few weeks, so the Shabbos after the Shavuos in Eretz Yisrael and a week later in Chutz La'aretz. And you'll see when you read Parshas Naso and you've got the Parsha of Sota and Parshas Naso, you'll read it in a completely different way. And you'll understand Rashi in ways that you've never understood it before. So Va'avar alav ruach kina v'kineit ishto. We know the psukim already. A man has this feeling of jealousy and he's passionately jealous about his wife. V'hi nitma'a, and she has been defiled. Or avar alav ruach kina v'kineit ishto. Or he was passionately jealous. V'hi lo nitma'a, or she wasn't defiled. Asks the Gemara, Ma Talmud lomar v'hi nitma'a v'hi lo nitma'a. How do you explain? If she was defiled, she wasn't defiled, was she or wasn't she? Im nitma'a lama shota. If she was defiled, that means she actually had a physical relationship with the other man. Why is she drinking the sota water? There's no point in it. It won't work. Im lo nitma'a, if we know that nothing happened, she was just having coffee with the guy, lama mashka. Why is she drinking the water in the first place? Magid lecha katuv. There's an amazing chidush, and in it buried a wonderful matmon. The Torah comes to teach us sehasafek asura, and I'm adding kavadai. It's not clear in our Gemara, but Tosfos in Yevomas quotes our Gemara with the word vadai, and you'll see why that's important. What it teaches us is, no, it's a safek. We don't know what happened. We just know that she was seen with this man. We know that they walked into a hotel together. Did they have coffee or did they have more? We don't know. And then there's no way of knowing. So there's a safek, and the husband doesn't know. But a safek asura kavadai. We treat her as if we do know. What does that mean? Mikana tadan l'sheretz, and from here we learn all the dinim of sofek sheretz, all the dinim of sofek tumah b'rishus hayachid and b'rishus harayim, all those laws of where there's a doubt about tumah. That we know that there are the 8 types of shratzim, which when they're dead, if they can cause tumah, they can contaminate kalim, utensils, and people and food. It's an avatuma. So now we don't know whether the kalim, whether these utensils touched the sheretz or not, or whether this person touched the sheretz or not. We don't know. What do? So we learn a kal vachomer. Sota shelo asa ba shogeg kemezid vones karatzon. In the case of sota, if she is a shogeget, she was mistaken. It didn't happen deliberately. We won't go into how that happens, the Metzias. V'oines karatzon, or she was raped. There's no din of sota. We don't treat her like a sota. It's only if she did it willingly, knowingly, and deliberately. Asaba safek vadai. Nevertheless, the Torah treats a doubt like a certainty. We've been talking about doubts and certainty the last couple of days. How the Torah treats this sota about who we don't know. All we know is she went off and was seen with a man. That's not an Issa D'Oraisa. What happened, we don't know. But we treat her as a vadai, even though if she were a shogeget or an ones, if she were not doing it deliberately, she would not be a sota. Sheret, she'asabo, shogeg kemezid v'ones keratzon. The tum'ah of sheret, the tum'ah of these dead insects, is more serious than the tum'ah of a sota. Because in the case of a dead insect, it doesn't matter if it was deliberate or it wasn't, or it was by mistake, or it wasn't, or it was ones, or it wasn't. Somebody threw a sheretz at you, you still become tomei, even though you didn't choose to do it. So in a sense, sheretz, the tumah of sheretz is more severe. And therefore, certainly we've also got to treat safek as vadai. So we have a chidush, there are two important principles that emerge from this little piece of Gemara. The one is that in the case of sota and sheret, in the case of sota and tumah, spiritual impurity and sota, we treat a doubt as if it's certain, not as a regular doubt. We treat it as if it's certain. So there's a chumrah, there's a severity in the case of tumah. The second interesting thing, if you notice, is we're making a total comparison between sheretz and sota. At the end of the day, sheretz results from physical contact, contamination. You touch the sheretz, the plate touches the sheretz. It's about a physical contamination. It's not about a moral choice. And that's why ones keratzon and shogeg kemezid, it doesn't matter what your intention was. This isn't about choice. It's just a fact. It's like somebody drives into your car and damages it and says, but I didn't intend to, I'm sorry. Tough, but you did. And therefore you have to pay for it. Sheretz is the same thing. You didn't intend, but you touched the sheretz. And the damage is there. This is about damages. There's spiritual damage when you touch a sheretz. What about a sota? A sota is a choice, a woman making a choice to do something against her husband, against family, against the Torah. So it's a completely different kind of tumah, we would think. This is tumah that comes from doing something wrong, and the sheretz is tumah that comes from contact. And yet the Torah juxtaposes the two, the Gemara juxtaposes the two, and learns one from the other, and treats them the same, because the word tumah is used in the case of sota. It doesn't just talk about she did something wrong. She was unfaithful to her husband. She betrayed her husband. She had an affair. It doesn't say that. Vehi nitma'ah, vehi lo nitma'ah. Why are we talking about tumah? This is a woman who did something wrong. We don't say a person broke the Shabbat, v'hu nitma. Don't say that. A person ate in a treif restaurant, milk and meat together. We don't say v'hu nitma. He did wrong. So she did wrong. Why is it called tumah? Where does the tumah come from? And why are we treating this tumah the same as the tumah that is caused when you touch a sheretz? So bear that in mind. We'll come to that in a moment. Tosfos asks an important question. It says, at the end of the day, sofik d'oraisa l'chumra. If you have a doubt in the Torah about a Torah law, we go the more severe route, right? So why do I need a special posuk to teach me that I've got to go l'chumra, that I've got to treat this as a vadai? Isn't every sofik d'oraisa like that? If I don't know if this meat is kosher or treif, what do we say? You treat it as treif. If I don't know if Shabbos has started yet or it hasn't, what do we say? Treat it as if Shabbos has started already. If you have a sofik about a d'oraisa, about a Torah law, you treat the more severe way. So why is this different? Why do I need a special limud to tell me sota and tumah, when there's a sofik, we treat it like a vadai? Says Tosfos, because the certainty we're talking about here is not just a chumrah. It's much more than that. It's ki'ilu vadai va'afagav deleka malkus. Even though there's no malkus, it's still a d'oraisa. You're still over a d'oraisa. And the difference would be that if the husband, as Tosfos says, im ba alea kamo al chayva asevelo kshas ve'ganzaverer, if he has a relationship with this woman, let's say the husband now sleeps with his wife, who is a sota, but it wasn't intentional. He didn't realize that she was a sota, whatever. It doesn't matter, says Tosfos. He's still being over because we treat it as a vadai. Let's go even further. Let's say, I don't know what the male form of a mistress is, but the guy knows nothing happened. She knows nothing happened. We, the Beis Din, we don't know what happened. The public doesn't know. But he knows and she knows. They just had a cup of coffee together. That's all that happened. Is she permitted to him? Is she a sota or isn't he? So I understand that to us, to the Beis Din, to the public, she's a sota. Because we don't know, so there's suspicion. But what about to the two of them? They know the truth. And if they know nothing happened, is she a sota or isn't she? Says Tosfos, yes, she's a sota. Reb Chaim Soloveitchik explains that in the piece at the bottom, that what's different here is the warning. If a woman is alone with a man and nothing happens, she's not a sota, she's not a safek zona. We don't assume anything happened. She has a chazakah, we assume everything's good. It's only in the case of sota where the man says, I'm asking you, please don't be alone together with that man. It makes me feel terrible. And she goes ahead and does it. It's the kinui, Tosfos explains, and Reb Chaim Soloveitchik explains, it's this warning which turns the safek into a vadai. So what we see from here that's really interesting is when a sota is not, maybe she was unfaithful, we don't know. A safek, in this case, the safek kavadai means that she has a status of safek. So let me explain it to you in the following way. You can have a situation of vada. You know something, meat is treif for sure. You know it. You know that you don't know that it's treif, but you've got to go lechumra. You have a doubt, so you've got to go lechumra. You've got to take the more severe route. But you can use all sorts of mechanisms to resolve that doubt. And if you ate that meat by mistake, although you have to do tshuva because you thought it was wrong and you ate it nevertheless, but it's not a serious tshuva, says Tosfos, because you haven't done something seriously wrong. It turns out the meat was kosher. You went into a restaurant thinking it was kosher. Or you went into a restaurant thinking it's treif. It turns out it was kosher. You went into a restaurant not knowing whether it's kosher or treif. It turns out it was kosher. You haven't done anything terribly serious. You ate kosher meat. But in this case, this woman, even though she's in a state of safek, has a different status. Her status is sota. The case of sheretz, safek tuma. Safek tuma doesn't mean I don't know whether it's tameh or not. It means I do know that it's safek tuma. And that's different. I'm vadai, I am certain that this is a case of safek tuma. That's what I'm certain about. Let's understand it in the following way. If a person goes to the doctor does some tests and says to him, you know what, we've got to do a whole lot of more tests because it's possible you've got a terrible cancer. So what does he go home and do? Say, you know what, I've got a chazaka that I'm healthy. It's only a safek. I'm ignoring it. It isn't so. That isn't. He doesn't sleep at night. And his family don't sleep. And they're worried. Because you're in a state of safek cancer, chas v'shalom. It's a terrible state to be in. If a person is in a state of safek tumah, if you treat tumah like a cancer, then you know what the safek tumah means. We don't care about tumah, tara, it's like no big deal, we don't take it seriously. But if you tuned into what tumah is, and you can feel it, to be in a state of safek tumah, that's not just like any other safek. Is the meat kosher or isn't the meat kosher? I ate it, I thought it was kosher. That's not the same thing. Safek tumah means there's a physical force attached to you that is negative and pulls you down. It's a destructive spiritual force that is attached to you, and if you can feel that, you want to get rid of it. And we need to try and tune into that when we do negavasa in the morning. You've got to try and feel that you're washing off something negative. If you don't feel different after negavasa than before negavasa, then what's really happened? Nothing's happened inside you. You've got to actually feel, I've woken up and I've got to start my day, and by washing my hands, I remove any force of tumah, and I can start my day freshly. We need to understand that from tumas hasheretz, this whole idea of tumas hasheretz is very specific, and today it doesn't apply, and all of that. But we learn a lot of things from sheretz. So in Parashat Shmini, a couple of weeks ago, Al tishachzu et nafshotechem bechol sheretz hashoretz. Don't disgust yourself with these shuratzim. V'lo titamu bahem v'nitmeitem ba. Notice the v'nitmeitem is spelled without an aleph. Al titamu bahem v'nitmeitem ba. Says the Gemara in Yuma. Why? Because aveira metamtemet libo shel olam. Tameh and timtum is the same. Tumah causes a distortion in the soul. It causes a corruption of the soul. It's like your computer system is being corrupted. That's what it is when you've got tumah. There's a corruption in the operating system of the soul. And one needs to be able to feel that. Where does that tumah come from? Do you think it comes from sheretz? Yes, it comes from sheretz. Does it come from sota? Yes, it comes in the case of sota. But the Gemara in Yuma says it comes from every avera, every time we do something wrong. There's a corruption in the soul. It's not just that we've done something wrong. There's an effect in the soul. We've corrupted in the soul. And that adam betamei atzmo ma'at, if one exposes oneself to a little bit of tumah, betamim oto harbei, the tumah grows. It's like a corruption. It grows. It affects the whole computer. It affects the whole operating system. We need to get rid of it. There are ways to get rid of the tumah. But the first thing is to be sensitive to tumah. If we're not even sensitive to tumah, then what does it really help? And what does it mean we're living a spiritual life? A person who's living a spiritual life in Torah develops sensitivity. He can feel when there's tumah. He looks around the street, he can feel when there's tumah and he wants to get away from it. It doesn't feel good, it feels infectious. He encounters a person and he feels tumah. He does something himself which is wrong and he feels the tumah. That's what a person who's tuned into spirituality is, and in the same way can feel kedusha, can feel sanctity. So when we say that the person is a sofek tumah now becomes a serious thing. Sofek tumah, unlike other sfekot, is not I am in doubt whether I'm in tameh. Sofek tumah means I know I'm a sofek tumah. That's a serious state. I know I'm a suspect for cancer, God forbid. That's a different state from, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. No, at this point I'm in doubt. And that doubt changes my whole mindset, changes my life, that doubt. I'm never the same after that doubt. So it is with safek tumah. If a person is safek tumah, we learn that from Sota, we learn this principle, tumah is so corrupting that even a sofek tumah is considered something serious and tangible, something that one can feel, and for which there are consequences that we want to prevent and we want to heal ourselves from so that we can enter areas of kedusha.